Hello, and this is Delia again, and we are on Chapter 10, Part 3. And this is The Awakening of the Vampire Diaries. Practice is over, murmured Bonnie. It must be dark outside. Yes, and our hero is getting all washed up, said Meredith, cocking an eyebrow at Elena. Want a peek? I wish, said Elena, only half jokingly. Somehow, indefinably, the atmosphere in the room had darkened just at the moment she did wish she could see Stefan, could be with him. Have you heard anything more about Vicky Bennett? She asked suddenly. Well, said Bonnie after a moment, I did hear that her parents were getting her a psychiatrist. A shrink? Why? Well, I guess they think that those things she told us were hallucinations of something, and I heard her nightmares are pretty bad. Oh, said Elena. The sounds from the boys' locker room were fading, and they heard an outside door slam. Hallucinations, she thought. Hallucinations and nightmares. For some reason, she suddenly remembered that night in the graveyard, that night when Bonnie had sent them all running from something none of them could even see. We better get back to business, said Meredith. Elena shook herself out of her reverie and nodded. We could have a graveyard, Bonnie said tentatively, as if she'd been reading Elena's thoughts. In the haunted house, I mean. No, said Elena sharply. No, we'll just stick with what we have, she added in a calmer voice, and bent over her pad again. Once again there was no sound but the soft scratching of pens and rustle of paper. Good, said Elena at last. Now we only need to measure for the different variations. Somebody's going to have to get in behind the bleachers. What now? The light in the gym had flickered and gone down half power. Oh no, said Meredith, exasperated. The lights flickered again, went out, and returned dimly once more. I can't read a thing, said Elena, staring at what now seemed to be a featureless piece of white paper. She looked up at Bonnie and Meredith and saw two white blobs of faces. Something must be wrong with the emergency generator, said Meredith. I'll get Mr. Shelby. Can't we just finish tomorrow? Bonnie said plaintively. Tomorrow's Saturday, said Elena, and we're supposed to have this done last week. I'll get Shelby, said Meredith again. Come on, Bonnie, you're going with me. Elena began. We would all go, but Meredith interrupted. If we all go and we can't find him, then we can't get back in. Come on. Bonnie, it's only inside the school. But it's dark there. It's dark everywhere. It's nighttime. Come on. With the two of us, it'll be safe. She dragged an unwilling Bonnie to the door. Elena, don't let anybody else in. As if you had to tell me, said Elena, letting them out, and then watching them go a few paces down the hall, at the point at which they began to merge with the dimness. She stepped back inside and shut the door. Well, this was a fine mess, as her mother used to say. Elena moved over to the cardboard box Meredith had brought and began stacking filing folders and notebooks back inside it. In this light she could see them only as vague shapes. There was no sound at all but her own breathing and the sound she made. She was alone in the huge, dim room. Someone was watching her. She didn't know how she knew, but she was sure. Someone was behind her in the dark gymnasium watching. Eyes in the dark. The old man had said. Vicky had said it too, and now there were eyes on her. Ooh, that's scary. She whirled quickly to face the room, straining her own eyes to see into the shadows, trying not even to breathe. She was terrified that if she made a sound, the thing out there would get her. but she couldn't see anything. She couldn't see nothing. And hear nothing. The bleachers were dim, but menacing shapes stretched out into nothingness, and the far end of the room was simply a featureless gray fog. Ew, that would be creepy in a gymnasium at night. It'd be that dark. Dark mist, she thought, and she could feel every muscle agonizingly tense as she listened desperately. Oh God, what was that soft whispering sound? It must be her imagination. Please let it be her imagination. Suddenly her mind was clear. She had to get out of this place. Now. Because there was danger here, not just fantasy. Something was out there, something evil, and something that wanted her, and she was all alone. Something moved in the shadows, and her scream froze in her throat. Her muscles were frozen too, held motionless by her terror and by some nameless force. Helplessly she watched as the shape in the darkness moved out of the shadows and toward her. It seemed almost as if the darkness itself had come to life and was, as she whatever that means, had come to life and was colossing as she watched, taking on form, human form, the form of a young man. Okay, so that's chapter 3, and on to chapter 4.